Hi, and welcome to the start of our lecture on globalization. For starters, globalization is defined as the intensification of integration and interaction among peoples, countries, businesses, and environments of the world. We're dealing with a really deep concept here with all kinds of different applications, examples, causes, and effects. Hopefully you know a lot of these words you see in front of you because we're going to be looking at a bunch of them. Globalization has been going on for a long time. You can talk about it as a process of many centuries, but recently it's accelerated quite a bit. Now here you have a kind of, a line depiction of the way that globalization has increased as the line goes upward over the many centuries as we go this way. So now we're getting way up here. Lots and lots of globalization as defined by per capita world trade, migration, and cultural interaction. So you can get an idea of some of the big events in the past that have kind of either accelerated or decelerated globalization. The Mongol Empire, when you have really strong empires, very often this facilitates the interaction of people. The movement of goods, the movement of cultural practices and other ideas. But disasters are usually pretty bad for globalization. So around the time of the Black Death, you had a big drop in globalization. As the Americas are connected to the Old World, to Europe and Africa and Asia, you have an increase in globalization, and it continues climbing until you have the crisis of the 16th century, by which I presume they mean the 30 Years' War. So again, war kind of destroys connections, and you have it going down again. Then you have less political change causing, or at least according to this graph, and more economic and technological change, the Industrial Revolution, increasingly tying together, say, Great Britain and Asia through India, or knitting Europe together through railroads, which are becoming more common. You have the age of European colonization and imperialism, sending globalization up really high. But then again, you have a disaster, World War I, which brings it down. You have another economic disaster, the Great Depression, followed by World War II. That also holds down globalization. You have the Cold War, which divided the world up into communist and capitalist blocks, which there may have been interaction within those blocks, but there wasn't very much across them or between them. And so that kept levels of globalization down as well. But more recently, with the end of the Cold War and the increase of, again, technological causes like the internet, say, you have another rise in globalization. So here we are, up here, just going up and up and up until, I don't know, take your pick, a giant Ebola outbreak? You never know. Globalization has been caused or accelerated by a lot of different factors. You can start with airplane travel, the quick and almost painless movement of people from one place to another across the globe. Even if this isn't necessarily used for very many goods, it absolutely ties people together. Most goods actually go by over the ocean in like giant shipping containers like that. You have the collapse of communism and the end of the Cold War for reasons mentioned, that the Cold War created a lot of walls between people, both physical walls, like the Berlin Wall that you see these guys knocking down in 1989, and more kind of mental or political walls between different populations and countries with different ideologies that didn't really trade with each other and didn't have much contact with each other. Other important causes include technological causes like the internet and the cell phone. The cell phone connects people, as you know, all across the globe, even those who are, in the middle of what, we in South Carolina would consider a very far away place. The internet works absolutely similarly, just kind of binding people together and helping them share ideas and information. you have the spread of free trade deals. And a free trade deal is basically a political agreement between two or more countries saying that they can trade goods and services without a lot of taxes, without a lot of tariffs, and other things that would stop interaction between those areas. This is a little political cartoon joking that this smelly little hipster who wants to knock out the World Trade Organization, which is the big group that facilitates a lot of these free trade deals. Everything the guy's wearing is made somewhere else. So, he's a walking contradiction. But I guess you could say that so are all of us who see kind of problems in globalization. Globalization is visible in nearly all aspects of modern life, and we're going to start out with a couple in this lecture. Information is one. International news stations like, say, CNN, Al Jazeera, the BBC, RT, which gives you a Russian angle on things, all of these bring world events and other cultures' perspectives into our living rooms, so we all feel like we're more closely connected with other people, even if sometimes we don't necessarily make an effort to understand things from their perspective. Here we have RT, which is the kind of Russian the Russian news program that's beamed out internationally, and as you can tell, it shows a pretty unpleasant view of the U.S., becoming a police state and so on. Well, even if you don't buy into that, which I also don't, it helps give you an idea of what the Russian outlook, or at least the Russian government, wants the outlook of Russia to be. The internet. It turbocharges the global spread of information and gives anybody a platform to speak, even if they're saying stupid things or spreading silly memes like this grumpy little cat figure, I guess, whatever it is. But blogs, other, Twitter, Tumblr, whatever the heck. I don't mess around with that stuff, but you probably know what I'm talking about. All those things help people spread information quickly. You have governments and corporations collecting information on maybe potential threats, maybe their own citizens, maybe people of other countries, if they're governments, or on customers, or people they want to be their customers, if they're corporations, around the world. You may have heard nasty things about, say, Facebook every now and then, vacuuming up a lot of information about you, and maybe you haven't liked that. But that is an aspect of globalization. Facebook is now collecting info on people all across the globe. Same thing with this, this little kind of cartoon warning is about our own National Security Agency, which also collects a lot of information on people. Other countries' security agencies do the exact same thing. So the governments of the world have globalized their ability and interest in gathering info about basically everybody. In terms of culture, the global culture has gotten much more similar across the world lately. You could say we're a global village, and that we have the same cultural touchstones. We watch the same movies very much. A lot of the TV shows that we see in the U.S. are beamed out to the rest of the world. Some of the rest of the world's cultural products are kind of given or available to the U.S., but they just aren't very widespread. The American and European culture especially seem to have, so far at least, and this may change in the future, seem to have been most spread by globalization. As mentioned, the West, and the U.S. in particular, exports values and ideas and habits. This here is a Russian poster, and it actually says, "The virus of liberalism, permanent war in the American world, and the Americanization of the world." So you get the idea that some people are not so much for this spread of American or Western ideas, which you can call Westernization or Americanization. And there's some good aspects, maybe some bad aspects of this process. One of the bad things that I worry about is the disappearance of smaller cultures, which don't really have the firepower to compete with a very wealthy and very productive and very vibrant and exportable American culture. This is seen in the things we just took a look at, like movies or books. It's also just can happen on the basic issue of language. English is very much spreading around the world. At the same time that a lot of smaller languages are potentially even disappearing entirely, like there are no living speakers of them left. So, I guess potentially a worrisome prospect. All right, so let's stop part one of this lecture on that note.